All right. Madam Secretary, call the roll and declare quorum.
Gary Eisenhower,
Here.
Michael Westlake,
Here.
Ronald Rensler,
Here.
Bill Mathers,
Here.
Bobby Reynolds,
Here.
Debbie Powell,
Here.
Todd Fisher, Commissioner Cochran,
All right.
Yeah.
We have a quorum,
You haven't got everybody.
David Tyree. Here. Here.
thanks, David.
You're welcome. I thought we was missing one, but I wasn't real sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a quorum. I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 28, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Blake said it.
Bobby. I second. Ron Rensler second. Get
Okay.
used to that.
Do we have any reports of the committees, members and the staff? None. All right, any old business? None. Okay, new business. We're here tonight to,
You should do your vice chairman, your chairman and vice chairman.
oh yeah, we can do it either at the end or the beginning. Okay,
Either
we
way.
need a motion for the vice chairman, because June resigned, our vice chairman, so we gotta have another vice chairman. And I nominate Mr. Rensler. So I'll take a vote on that. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Rensler, you're
Vice
now the
chair.
vice chair.
Thank you.
What? No campaign
Okay.
slogan? No campaign speech?
And the new business tonight is we're going to hear two requests. The first one is going to be various requests, number V20-1, filed by Jeffrey A. Hoffman, property located at 12911 Lawyers Road, tax parcel 197-021-05 from section 6.9.7 of the Mint Hill Unified Development Ordinance. And anybody wanting to speak to that needs to come up here and be sworn in. Do we do that?
Why don't you go down to the corner down there?
All right.
Here's your. Go down to the corner down there to swear.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief, so help you God? Awkward.
Yeah, well,
You gotta do what it's gotta do.
yep.
All right. Are all the adjoining property owners been notified, and whether or not there have been any responses with them? They've been notified, okay.
Where's the sign?
Okay, the code enforcer you want to give a background of the request?
All right, so for this applicant, I will just start out by saying that he's been waiting for this one since, I think, originally this was supposed to happen back in March, and then all this happened, so this has been, we're finally able to do this. And for this one, actually, I'll let him, take it away and explain it all. So you good? Yeah.
Yeah. would address the podium and give your name and address.
My name is Jeff Hoffman. I live at 12911 Lawyers Road, the property in question. A little background on this. This particular property was part of the Griffin homestead. We purchased it from Jan Griffin, which was the son of Buford Griffin. My mother-in-law, Rowena Sestar, lives next door. So this property has been within eyesight of the Griffin family for a while. The original homestead was demolished at some point. In 1969, Buford built the current residence. The barn in question, from our knowledge, we figured out somewhere between 1910 and 1915 that barn was built. There's 3.6 acres on that property. The existing home is 2,900 square feet, and I'm looking to build a garage. It seems a little large, 45 by 50, I think it's 2,250 square feet, but in my time in the military, moving around many places I've seen, if you open up their garage, there's nothing but stuff. And I wanted to have a garage where I could park my car in and still put my stuff in. And so I came up with the plan to build this last summer, and I've been going through issues with the architect and whatever with the plans. So my dilemma right now is, according to the current ordinance, if you got more than 2 acres, you're limited to auxiliary square footage no larger, accessory buildings can't be any larger than the current house. So if you have a small house, regardless of how many acres you have, you can't have a pool house, a barn, a detached garage, or any other building adding up to the total size of the house. I understand the reason for the ordinance, but there's a lot of property there that I just can't use if I can't build on it. One of the issues we're running with these older houses is there is not much storage in them. So I definitely need, or would like to at some point build a garage. When I was informed by Nathan of the plan, I contacted him last summer because I had working on this plan, and prior to that I talked to Billy Kaiser. Billy Kaiser recently built the detached garage and told me that I was limited to 900 square feet. When I contacted Nathan, I told him that. He said, that is true. And I said, is there an acres limitation? He said, yes. And at that point, I found out it was more than 2 acres. I could build a garage. I didn't know at that time there was a limit. So that's how I got to this point. So I'm hoping the board will take into account my request. Regardless how you plan, how you vote on it, you may want to consider at some point a text change, because if a person's got any amount of property, the house is limiting the use of the property. And on top of that, we all pay our taxes. I'll be taxed on this garage, which will be a benefit to Mint Hill as well. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it, your time, and hopefully a good outcome. Thank you.
At this time, we will start our,
Okay. Questions?
Any questions? Mr. Hoffman?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
It might be for the town or for him. He has 3.6 acres. Can that land later on be sold, split up and sold? And that was Debbie Powell, I'm sorry, with the question.
It could be, yeah.
So if we approve this, then actually it could be on less acreage later on then.
Take a look at the drawing of the land, okay? I only got 300 feet on the frontage, but it's really, really deep. And it's hemmed in on all 3 sides by other pieces of property. If anything could be sold, it may be from the driveway to the left. The garage would still be on the lion's share of the property, if I ever was going to decide to sell it. But it's not really conducive for selling based upon the way the land is laid out, the way I'm locked in.
And whereas houses with the width of the property, it would be pretty hard to ever subdivide it, but I'm sure it's possible if you.
Board have any more questions for Mr. Hoffman or staff? Go ahead.
Have you considered attaching it to the existing house?
We went through the discussion. The issue we ran into is the way the house is laid out internally. If there was a way I could put it onto the house and not screw up the layout of the house, I would. That back part that you see sticking on the back part of the house, that was a sunroom that the previous owner added on. And the part to the right side of that is a carport. So, I mean, I'm kind of limited where I could put it. I mean, if I put it to the right side, then my house is humongously long on one end, and then I have to have a driveway going all the way around. We talked about it.
Because that would solve the problem if it's attached to the
Right,
house.
I'm aware of that.
Have you considered maybe a covered walkway to it, so it's.
Well, based on how this turns out, that may be an option. You know, my options were tear down the barn, which I really didn't want to do, make the garage smaller, which, I mean, I went through a lot of discussion and planning on this, and that's what we were looking for, or make it attached. I didn't go down the path of how to make it attached. It is an option, but I didn't, because right now I was going to try to go back 55 feet, so I have enough driveway in the front to use the carport and drive in and have a place to park in front of the garage. I'm not sure how I would do that if I attach it.
How many feet is it between the existing house and that driveway?
Well, you're seeing in the drawing from the house to where I want to put it is 55 feet. And so maybe you're looking 20 feet or maybe 20 feet to the left and then just a short driveway going in.
But that's 55, you got a good 40 there.
Yeah. And even if I tried to attach it at the current location, it would be quite the walkway.
But you'd have to make it blend in with the house.
Right, absolutely.
Any more questions from the board?
No, I have none.
All right, this time we're going to go into our facts finding portion of the meeting. I think I've got it. All right, we're going to start with Mrs. Powell, and then we'll come down this way, and then we'll go down that way, and I'm going to do that every time. So we'll start with Mrs. Powell. Unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance.
Debbie Powell. Unnecessary hardships would result from the strict application of the ordinance because the size of their 3.6 acre lot makes the hardship unnecessary.
Mr. Westlake.
I don't find a problem with, I don't think there's a hardship resulting from the condition. The owner has other options.
Okay. Mr. Mathers.
Bill Mathers, I don't find any hardships at all. It's the size of the property.
Mr. Reynolds.
It's Bobby Reynolds. The unnecessary hardship would result from strict application of ordinance by not letting this property to be improved on as he wants.
Gary Eisenhower. I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
David Tyree, there would be a hardship due to the strict applications for various reasons. One being the size of the lot, 3.6 acres. There's a barn built at the turn of the century. It does not need to be torn down just so the size of the square foot match up.
The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Topography. I can never pronounce that word. Ms. Powell.
This is Debbie Powell. The hardships results from conditions that all are peculiar. The hardship is the size of the lot allows plenty of space for the planned detached garage, as well as allowing the historical barn to remain.
Mr. Westlake.
The hardship is not the result of the conditions of the property. He has other options as to the location and how the building could be connected to the house.
Mr. Mathers?
Outside of the hardship of the size of the lot, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Reynolds?
It's Bobby Reynolds. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property by its size and shape.
Gary Eisenhower, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size. The property is not to be developed. It is 3.6 acres in size.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Ms. Powell.
David Tyree, I agree with Ms. Powell.
The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Ms. Powell?
You're,
Did I miss
You
one?
want me to answer that one or the one before it?
you're ahead of one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll go.
My bifocals didn't kick in. All right, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. Ms. Powell?
The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The hardship is the historical barn built between 1900 and 1910, or whatever he said, that appears to be in good condition and should not be the reason to prevent the applicant from building an additional accessory structure that complements the existing principal structure.
Mr. Westlake?
I got mixed up. Which one are we on now?
Page 2, the top.
The middle one, the hardship did not result from action taken by the applicant or the property owner.
Oh, okay. Hardship was the result of actions taken by the applicant. Like I said before, the owner has other options.
Mr. Mathers?
I agree with Ms. Powell.
Mr. Reynolds?
It's Bobby Reynolds. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant, but it is the result of an existing old barn on site.
Gary Eisenhower, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Ms. Powell.
David Tyree, the hardship is not a result of the owner. The property's been in the family since before the 1900s, and the existing barn's been built 70 years prior to the existing house.
The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Ms. Powell?
Debbie Powell. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance. The 3.6 acre size of the property would allow this variance to be consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent.
Mr. Westlake?
The requested variance is not consistent with the spirit and purpose and intent of the ordinance. Has no effect on public safety, but does have an effect on substantial justice as there are other options.
Mr. Mathers?
I agree with Ms. Powell again.
Mr. Reynolds?
It's Bobby Reynolds. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, and public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved by allowing this property to be improved with a much neater-looking shed or garage be built on it.
Gary Eisenhower, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
David Tyree, yes, the variance requested is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that the public safety is secure. If this property were on a smaller lot or closer to town, this would be a different scenario. The variance should be allowed based on 3.6 acre parcel.
That concludes this portion of the board. I'll now entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, regarding variance request B 20-1 filed by Jeffrey A. Hoffman for property located at 12911 Lawyers Road, being tax parcel number 197-021-05, requesting a variance to the section 6.9.7A.1 to increase the size of the accessory structure to be greater than the size of the primary structure. I make a motion to approve this variance for the following reasons. Unnecessary hardships would result from the strict application of the ordinance by subjecting this larger size lot of 3.6 acres to adhere to the ordinance and only allow the detached garage if the historical barn is removed. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar and that the historical barn structure was built in the early 1900s and still in good condition, and the size of the lot allows for additional structures and increased footage. A variance would be consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved in that this 3.6 acre lot allows for additional structures and increased footage.
I'll second that.
I'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Well, I couldn't hardly hear all of the motion. Is that for denial, Debbie? Or
No, that was
approving?
for approval.
Approving, okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Approved.
Approval. The motion, I mean, the variance has been
Six
approved.
approves, 1 6 ayes, 1 nay.
I need everybody to really lean forward and speak into the mic.
Somehow.
This is not working.
All right, our next variance is requested number V20-2 filed by Francis and Mary Marwitz. Property located 8509 Aspen Court, tax parcel number 139-282-17 from section 6.1 building lot standards and dimensional requirements of the Mint Hill Unified Development Ordinance. Did you come up and?
No.
Okay.
Well, let me get over here to this part of it.
Oh, I gotta find it. What did I do with it? Here it is. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge and
Yeah.
belief, so help you God?
Yeah, I do. That mic needs to go up a little bit.
I got two
Thank
new
you, sir.
papers. Okay. All right, Mr. Moritz, go ahead and explain why you want a variance.
My name is Frank Moe. It's Francis, but I go by Frank. 8509 Aspen Court, 28227. I'm here before you tonight seeking a small variance to encroach into the existing 20-foot side yard setback. What I would like to do is build a structure that's 10 feet wide by 20 feet deep, which would be adjacent to my existing garage, which is a two-car garage. It is on the left-hand side of the garage. I don't know if you received a copy of this survey that I prepared. If you'll notice, the variance is a very small portion of the encroachment. The building will be starts about 7 feet at the front, and as it goes back to about 11 or 12 feet, it goes to zero encroachment. So the encroachment, rough calculation, is about 25% of the square footage that I'm going to build. So I'm gonna build 200 square feet. The encroachment is roughly 41 square feet, so it's a little less than 25%. The neighborhood that I'm in is fairly new. My house was built in 16. I was the 6th house in the neighborhood. There's now 50, and that's the limit. Pretty much everybody has between 3/4 of an acre and 1.1 acre. And I would say roughly half the houses in the neighborhood have a 3-car garage. So as you would look at this would be consistent with other houses in the neighborhood. It would look like a 3-car garage, but it's not gonna have a garage door. This is gonna be built as a, this is gonna be a workshop for me. I'm gonna retire next year, and I have a couple old classic cars in my garage, and I have no room to move. Excuse me, the garages that were built in these houses are very small. They're 20 by 20. Mine's actually 19.5 by 19.2, so I didn't even get the 20 by 20. So I have no room to move around. I'd like to build a workshop where I can move all my tools, all the ancillary things I have around the outside of my garage into the workroom, and then I'll have just the cars, the 2 cars themselves, in the garage. Everything I do will match the existing house as far as materials and colors. It's going to be built by a certified North Carolina contractor, and I'm asking your approval to encroach into this side yard setback by a very small amount. The distance, by the way, the distance between our homes is, the house to my right is probably 150 yards away, and the house to my left, which would be the same side I'm going to build this addition on, is probably about 70 yards, 60 to 70 yards away. So there's not it's not like we're all jammed together and I'm going to be building something right in somebody's face. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Board have any questions for,
I have a question. David Tyree. You said on the front of the workshop, basically, it's going to be 10 by 20.
That's correct.
Once you get beyond 7 feet, that's the part that's going to encroach into the setback?
Once you get beyond 3 feet,
All right.
it'll encroach
And-
by 7 feet.
All right, and how far do you have to go lengthwise until you would be able to get back to your, because it's going to be,
To be outside the encroachment,
correct,
about 12 and a half feet. So half the distance, a little more than half the distance is in the encroachment, and a little more than half the width, but the total is less than 25% of the entire structure.
and there's no way there's any kind of design that would fit inside that encroachment.
It would be almost useless to build it because the shape would be very odd and very strange, and the cost to do it would be prohibitive. I checked into that with my contractor, and he said it would be quite expensive because of the different shapes and angles, and the roof line would have to be custom joists, and it would be actually be quite expensive, from what I understand.
so, correct, Gary Eisenhower, only 42 square feet will be into the encroachment of
Yes,
the,
sir. 42 out of 200.
42 out of 200.
Yes, sir, a little bit less than, about 25%.
Right.
Less than 25%.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ron Rensler, in this subdivision, do you have a homeowners association?
We do.
Do you have to run your plans through the homeowners association
We
for
do.
approval?
We have to run the elevations, and we have to run, this same thing that I drew up for you has to be run by them.
Have you been approved by the homeowners association?
We have.
Okay.
I have a question for Debbie Powell. The adjacent neighbor to the left, looking at your house to the
Yes.
left, have they responded to the town in any way?
He did call, and he said he was happy that he was coming here to try to get a variance, and he had no issues with it.
Neighborhood's fine, I'm fine. That changes everything. I didn't catch the answer to that.
All these homes on well and septic,
Yes, they are.
that's the reason you can't put it on the right, is that correct?
That's correct. And when just to give you, when we purchased the home, we asked for a 3-car garage, and they said they couldn't build it for us. This was True Homes, was the developer. They said they couldn't build it for us because they couldn't move the home any further to the right, because in that area on the survey to the right of the home is where my well field is. So even if I could put a detached garage, I'd have no way to get a car to it because you can't pave over a well field.
Right.
And our HOA CCNRs don't allow any attached buildings, whether it's a shed or a garage, they're not allowed in the CCNRs.
I have a couple of questions. My question, are you tying this into the existing roof line of the house?
No, it's gonna
Excuse
be,
me.
it'll be lower than the roof line.
Mr. Westlake, would you speak into the mic, because I can't hear you?
Yeah, it'll be lower.
Okay, is there any reason why you can't shift that back then if it's gonna be lower to get it out of the setback?
Well, I have windows along that side of the house, and if I shift it back, I lose the windows that are on the side of the house that are bringing light into the house.
Can you pull up the side elevation map for Google?
She didn't get your question.
Oh, I asked him if he was gonna tie the new structure into the existing roof line. You wrote that. Yeah, on the right-hand side, try the second part. No, no. How far back up do your windows start on that side?
They start just behind where the wall is, the rear wall is on that survey drawing that I gave you
Of the new structure?
of the new structure. Starts just behind that. We went to that window by about 8 inches forwards, just to keep that window, those windows in place.
What does that window go into, that kitchen window?
Pardon me?
What does that window go into?
It's our master bath, and then the bedroom behind it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a better shot right there. There's where you can see those windows, Michael.
Yeah. Pardon? Go ahead.
Bill Mathers.
Speak
Is
into
there
the
gonna
mic.
be- Is there going to be
Your
a
name.
garage door entrance at the front, or is it gonna be a solid front facing the road?
There won't be any garage doors at all. There'll just be some windows. And then the entrance to this workshop will be from the inside of my existing garage. There'll be a regular doorway going into the workshop.
Okay, any more questions from the board? All right, we'll go into our facts-finding portion of this meeting. And we'll start with Mrs. Powell. Unnecessary hardship will result from the strict application of the ordinance.
Debbie Powell. Unnecessary hardships would result from the strict application of the ordinance. It would be unnecessary for this small encroachment to prevent the building of the addition.
Mr. Westlake.
Unnecessary hardships would result from the application of the ordinance due to his limited ability to place this on the property in another location.
I'd like to remind the board, speak into the mic. We're having trouble hearing you back here. Mr. Mathers.
I agree that there would be a unnecessary hardship because of the location not being able to be moved.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is Bobby Reynolds. Unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance by not allowing an addition of this small amount to be added onto the home.
Gary Eisenhower, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Mr. Reynolds.
David Tyree, there would be a hardship due to the strict adherence due to the small encroachment into the setback.
The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Ms. Powell.
Debbie Powell. The hardship results from the conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. One of the hardships is the CCRs do not allow detached structures, limiting the applicant's options.
Mr. Westlake.
The hardship is a result of conditions that are peculiar to the property due to the shape of the lot on the east side, giving it a strange angle.
Mr. Mathers.
The hardship does result from conditions that are peculiar, both from the CCRs and then also the location of where the property is.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is Bobby Reynolds. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. The location of the existing home sitting on the lot is creating this hardship.
Gary Eisenhower agrees with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, agree with Ms. Powell.
David Tyree, I agree with Ms. Powell.
The hardship does not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. Mrs. Powell.
Debbie Powell. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or property owner. The angle of the property increasing into a much wider backyard limits the available space in the front section of the property, which causes the small encroachment to be needed.
Mr. Westlake.
I agree with Ms. Powell.
Mr. Mathers.
I also agree with Ms. Powell.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is Bobby Reynolds. I'm going to also agree.
Gary Eisenhower, I agree with Ms. Powell.
Ron Rensler, I agree with Ms. Powell.
David Tyree, I agree with Ms. Powell.
The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Ms. Powell.
Debbie Powell. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such as public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Denying this small encroachment would be a substantial injustice, and the public safety will be secure.
Mr. Westlake.
I agree with Ms. Powell.
Mr. Mathers.
I again agree with Ms. Powell.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is Bobby Reynolds. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, and public safety is secured and substantial justice achieved by allowing this small encroachment to be built.
Gary Eisenhower agrees with Mr. Reynolds.
Ron Rensler, agree with Ms. Powell.
David Tyree, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that the public safety and justice is achieved. Also, this plans have been approved by his HOA, and there are no neighbors up here complaining.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, regarding Debbie Powell. Regarding variance request V 20-2 filed by Francis and Mary Mowitz for property located at 8509 Aspen Court, being tax parcel number 139-282-17, requesting a variance to section 6.1, building lot standards and dimensional requirements to encroach into the current required 20-foot side setback. I make a motion to approve this variance for the following reasons. Unnecessary hardships would result from the strict application of the ordinance by not allowing this small encroachment. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar in that this is the only location on the property available because of the HOA CCRs not allowing detached structures and the angle and shape of the property. A variance would be consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved in that small encroachment.
I'll second that too.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Variance is approved. Okay, I think that, I'll entertain a motion to. go
Ron
home.
Rensler, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Let's go home.